would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. I hope you all had a great Super Bowl Sunday weekend. I apologize for I had a couple of encore performances last week, and I think I missed a day. I don't know what disease my children brought into the house, but it took over a week, I think, to really get a hold of it. I feel pretty good today, so keep beaming me the good vibes. I wanted to make sure everyone knows that all of the autographed copies of Mr. Greenberger's book have been sent. Actually, they were sent early last week, so in fact, the week before. So you should, everyone who won one of the books, there were 4 folks out there who won a copy of an autographed copy of Risk Game. So I hope you all have them in your hands right now. You should. If you don't, send me them. I don't know what to tell you. I only had 4 copies. But they all got mailed. They should have started arriving in mailboxes Monday or Tuesday last week. So congratulations to those folks. Thanks for jumping in and offering up your name to win. I love it when I can give stuff back to listeners. So I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did, because I think it's a fantastic book. Now, moving on today, one great way to get in contact with me is through the website. Just head on over to therebelbroker.com. From there, you can send me a message, or you can register to win a $50 Amazon gift card. All you got to do is click that big red button at the top of the page that says, take the survey to support the show. Use the same email address both times you're asked. Answer a handful of questions, and you're in the drawing. We do this once a month. In fact, we're going to be doing this month. In February. 4 folks have won already. That's $200 that folks in the audience have won. And I want to give you all time to get the word that it's going to happen so that you can take the time to head on over and press that little red button. So I think what I'll do is plan on doing the drawing for the winner, let's say Wednesday, before 5 p.m. I'll do it at 5 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday. So just make sure to register before then, so you'll be in the running to win the February $50 Amazon gift card. Good luck to all of you who partake, and congratulations to the 4 folks who have won so far. And the last little bit of housekeeping, I am happy to announce that the folks who are members of the Rebel Underground have finally received their very first bit of exclusive content. Now, that went out on Saturday morning, I believe. That is access to an exclusive video that is only available to the folks who are members of the Rebel Underground. If you would like to join the Rebel Underground and get in on such stuff, all you need to do is text the word Rebel Broker, the number 44222. That's text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. And this is sort of just the beginning. I have some pretty cool plans, I think, moving forward to supply more content. And if you want to get access to it early, or in many cases be the only folks to get access to it, then you'll want to go ahead and join the Rebel Underground. So jump out and do that. It's worth your time. I apologize for how long it took me to get this one out. I was hemming and hawing over how long it was going to be and what it should contain and what it shouldn't contain. I ended up going a little bit longer than I had planned, but there it is. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please feel free to do so. And just keep in mind that the only way you can access it is by using the specific link that was sent to you in the email. So if you go to YouTube to search for it, or any of that kind of stuff, it will not show up. It will only show up to folks who actually have the link. So just as a reminder for folks who might go to YouTube and search for it after they perhaps delete the email. Okay, we've got some interesting stuff to cover today, folks. One of the first is a story that we talked about a while ago relating to Vancouver. Now, Vancouver passed a law, and I, on this show, thought it didn't make a whole lot of sense. What they basically did was charged a 15% tax on foreign home buyers. And they immediately saw a downturn after doing that. Prices are still very high in Vancouver, but what's interesting is now, at least at sites like Quartz, and I will include a link to this story in the show notes for today's show, are actually selling this as a good idea. And I'm not sure where I come down on this one. I'm usually not a pro tax more guy when it comes to this kinds of things. But the article starts off obviously on a happy note where it states, good news, Londoners, Stockholmers, and San Franciscans, Vancouver may have solved one of your toughest problems. Last year, the Canadian city topped UBS's Global Real Estate Bubble Index. So this is from the standpoint of cooling off a potential bubble. So kind of keep that in mind as we go through this. A ranking of cities most at risk of being in a property bubble. The bank said Vancouver's housing market was in overdrive. But in the last 4 months, house prices have taken a marked turn downwards. Now, I've also gone ahead and put up onto Pinterest the chart that they're sharing, but also keep in mind, if you follow the link to the article, you'll be able to see the same chart that I'm looking at now. And if you're just looking at the chart in terms of what's going on with prices, it is a little bit comforting. Now, granted, from 2014 till 2016, it has seen a crazy increase, and it's nowhere near what you would call a substantial reduction, but it's peaked. It kind of hit this peak, and it's taking a downturn, and I can see why that would be attractive. Residential property sales dropped 39.5% in January compared to a year ago, and according to the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. So with 1,523 properties sold in the region, that was also an 11% decrease from December, according to the same report. Now, the drop in sales is pulling down prices as well. So we're not only talking about the number of homes that are getting sold going down, but we're also talking about this now bleeding into home prices. The House Price Index by the Canadian Real Estate Association puts the benchmark property price at $896,000. That's $688,000 US dollars. And that's down 3.7% in the past 6 months. So it's still crazy expensive, but it has brought it down. So it sort of begs the question, do these kinds of policies make sense if it negatively affects prices, particularly when the folks who bought 6 months ago are now sort of in negative territory? See, here's my thing. If you don't time this right, a move like this does not prevent a bubble, it causes it, right? Doesn't it? Because really, what's a bubble? What starts a bubble? A bubble gets started when folks suddenly discover that they owe more on a property than the property is actually worth. So what causes that situation to happen? Well, prices going down would be one of them, right? If you bought just before this 15% tax on foreign home buyers, you suddenly find yourself in negative equity, right? Depending on how you purchased it. I mean, I don't know what the equivalents are, right? But sales dropped almost 40%. Prices are down 4%. So the next step is to ask yourself, well, how much money did these folks have down? Now, the Canadian market is different from ours. I'm not sure of what different lending instruments they have. But if something like that was done here and they specifically aim this tax gun at places like San Francisco, for those folks who bought with 3.5% down or lower, depending on the loan, remember we've talked about an awful lot of loans with an awful lot of low money down options. Well, you suddenly find yourself below what you paid. Not just below what you paid, but probably below what you borrowed. So you currently owe more than the home is worth. The article goes on to say that this 15% tax on foreign home buyers is working. They're describing it as a good thing. And that's according to the Bank of Montreal analysis. They show how prices have been falling in Vancouver, but are still appreciating steeply in Toronto and Victoria, which don't have a similar tax. Additionally, the federal government introduced new rules in October that made it harder for first-time buyers to get a mortgage. Now, here's where it even gets more interesting, right? Remember, we've already talked about a basic 4% drop in prices over the last 6 months, right? Well, according to Royal LePage, a real estate company, forecasts housing prices will drop 8.5% in 2017. They argue that an important reason for the fall in sales isn't just the foreign buyers tax, but that locals have stopped putting their homes up for sale simply because they can't find affordable alternatives. Now, in a brief bout of honesty, they do conclude here at the end, of course, what worked for Vancouver may not work everywhere, and indeed, if other cities adopt such a foreign buyer's tax, it may end up putting even more pressure on the markets of cities that don't. Still, it shows that there are ways to bring a runaway market under control. So, I think at this point, what we have to worry about are the rules relating to unintended consequences. Depending on the timing of something like this, you could slow down a marketplace, but you could do what's happened here, where prices are negatively affected to the tune of 8.5% in 2017 and 4% over the last year, or over the last 6 months. Well, that basically means that over a course of 18 months, you've got property values dropping 13%. That's not so good, particularly for the folks who bought leading up to that point where this tax was passed, and also where these laws in Canada were passed, making it tougher for first-time buyers. However, having said that, it would seem like in most areas they're in the same bind we are in terms of there not being enough inventory. Now, I don't know enough about the Canada market, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about this particular policy. How do you feel about having a tax on foreign home buyers? I think it sounds good and potentially feels good when folks look at these initial numbers, but I think the things it could cause could bring us a lot more heartache than I think a lot of folks are ready to deal with. Now, we're going to take a quick break right here. When we come back, we're going to talk about some more ground truth stuff to share with you relating to my personal sale of my property and my desire to move into another property. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909.
Welcome back, everyone. We were just talking about sort of an interesting subject in Vancouver relating to a reversal in that market due to a new tax, and also probably due to some new rules relating to buyers. I'm guessing the tax was the main thing. Since that rule only just started from the federal government, the tax started 6 months ago. And as soon as that went in, literally right down to the minute, is suddenly when that market started to take a downturn. So clearly the dominant influence here is that tax change. And whether or not that's applicable to other markets where they specifically mentioned San Francisco, and I think the potential downside is pretty darn creepy. I think, again, the real solution is to talk more about inventory, not to sort of fool around in a more managing way with all these different elements relating to the market, particularly relating to taxation of whoever. All right, so I also wanted to bring everyone up to date. It's relatively good news, and I hope it is encouraging for those of you who are trying to achieve your goals. that I was able to exercise a couple of backup plans here and had options. So I thought I'd share with you what my next option was. Now, as I told you last time, I had tried to do a HELOC and found that because of the timing relating to an investment property that I have over in Hawaii, and I didn't have 2 years worth of numbers on some different things, the folks who do the HELOC math were upset with how much I was spending, but would not count the money that was coming in from those investments. So I couldn't offset the expense of holding that property in Hawaii with the amount of money that property was making me. I know it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They want 2 years of data on that, despite what I could show them in terms of consistent return. Okay, that's all fine. Now, another option that could have been looked into is private money lenders, where I could have potentially gotten a similar style loan with a higher interest rate, with some very firm timing on it relating to being either a 6-month or a 1-year scenario. But I chose 2 other options. One, I reached out to my sphere of influence of people, and we'll talk about that in a second. The other thing I did was go for a new first mortgage and simply do a refi. Now, of course, the interest rate I have is better than the current interest rate that's out there. I found 4 different outfits that were willing to loan me money. My current lender, the current person who holds the note on my home, was willing to give me a loan to do a refinance. 2 other banks were also willing to do a refinance. And I would have been able to get all of those with no points and no fees. So there are options out there, but my payment obviously would have gone up. And I didn't like that option because it limits my flexibility in having options. So let's say that I do all this work on my house and I want to and I decide I want to stay. I decide I don't want to sell it, or I decide I want to rent it instead. What would I do then? I'd now have this refinanced loan that isn't necessarily something I'm too jazzed about, that could really limit my options. I'd much rather have these modification dollars, or the money I'm using to update the home, potentially be a more nimble thing, something that doesn't necessarily affect the overall investment, but just has a more localized impact. So I wanted to go with something where, if need be, I could then turn around and rent this place, and with the positive cash flow, buy down whatever other loan that I have. Okay, so what did I do? I usually, if I'm going to reach out to my sphere of influence, and I never reach out to my sphere of influence for money, unless that's what my relationship with them is, right? If it's an investment thing and I want to turn them on to investment, maybe not something I'm investing in, but anything, and just let them know that an investment opportunity is available, that's one thing. But when it's me personally, I start off with my sphere of influence first being family. Then extend, if I don't get what I need there, I go out to friends, and then I go out to associates and coworkers, that type of thing. And then just keep growing it until I've found what I need to find. Luckily for me, I have a family member who was in the process of turning into cash some stuff. So they were just holding this huge lump of cash and holding it in a bank, and they were getting the 0.0 whatever interest rate that banks are offering. So I came in, and they were willing to offer me the entire amount I needed, and I was willing to offer them a interest rate that worked for them, and drawing it out not all at once but in chunks, so then it potentially minimizes the amount of interest I'll pay, simply because I won't have that money in my possession. So it all ended up working out. I now have access to the funds I need to complete the work that I'm going to do on the home, on my current home, to raise its value so that I can then market it. And my goals in terms of timing remain pretty much the same. I'm still looking at the May-June timeframe. I think that's going to be the sweet spot in terms of a potential sale for the home. And then looking at other options for me, where once that is done, I'll be able to take those funds and get another home that I will live in, and then potentially have cash to also invest in an investment property. So that's where things are. I thought I'd let you know. And literally, I'm sorry that I wasn't able to give you this update last week. I can't remember when I mentioned this or gave you the last update. I don't know if it was Monday last week or the Friday week before. But just because last week I was very kind of out of it. But in any event, it was literally, I gave you all the update of what I was going to do. 2 or 3 days later, I implemented some of my plans, explored some of my options. And within 24 hours, I had two options. I could either do the refi. On Monday last week, I had a, do you want us to give you a refi offer that sounded good? The numbers worked for me. And I also had a family member saying, hey, I've got this cash. I'd love to make some interest higher than what I'm getting from the bank on this money for you to use it. So it all ended up working out. It ended up working in a timely way. And I encourage all of you to, when you're exploring these various options, open up the idea can and figure out what you can shake out of it. If this had been something where it was an investment property, where I wasn't looking to do something in terms of a remodel of my own property, but looking to acquire another property, these are the same kinds of steps that you can take to do that in terms of not the refi, but in terms of going out and exploring your personal sphere of influence and also other folks that you know and saying, hey, and make sure you're putting it together. So I'm up on Bigger Pockets, and I know a lot of you are because many of you have reached out to me, but don't do what so many people on Bigger Pockets do or on other venues where you're looking for investors. Don't just say, hey, need money, call me. That doesn't work. You need to have a compelling plan. You need to say, here's the property, here's the layout. If you're concerned someone's going to swipe your deal, don't give the address. Leave out pertinent information relating to the property, but have the numbers so that you can show someone what the likely return is. That way, you're in a much better position to convince someone to reach out to you. And then once they've reached out to you, you can decide what kind of an interaction you're going to have with them. But don't just yell out, I need money. Now, in my case, I yelled out to my immediate family via email, I'm looking for X amount of dollars. I'm willing to pay X amount of interest per year on it. And I am guaranteeing that I will pay you back after no more than 12 months was my pitch. Because I would eat. And so some of you may be saying, well, then Robert, how does that keep your options open? Like you were saying in terms of not doing a refi, but wanting to do it this way. Here's why, because the refi option is still open to me. If I decide to stay, I can do the refi option and then just pay off, the person who loaned me the money. Or once I hit the 2-year mark on my investment property, which is August, I can get a HELOC. So that's the reason, because then I could just get the HELOC, pay off the person I've made the deal with, and then just tend to the HELOC. Now, and also, you want to make sure you're understanding what your various interest rates are. Now, I paid a little bit, and I wanted to make sure that this was an attractive option for folks. I actually made the interest rate a little higher than what I was even going to pay for the HELOC in terms of this loan. But I also made sure that I was taking the money out in smaller chunks to begin with so that I could stagger it so that the total money I end up owing at the end is less. Does that make sense? With a HELOC, it also does the same thing. It only starts accruing interest with money that you use. But I wanted to make sure that I was giving an enticing offer to the folks that are out there in my sphere of influence, particularly for my family. All right. So anyway, that's that. I hope that is helpful. I think it's always good when I can sort of sprinkle real life stuff on top of all of this. And I think it's great that I'm going through this right now myself so I can share with you whatever comes up as I go through. In terms of the activities that I'm actually involved in relating to my property, I'm also considering the option of trying to get ahead of the market. I'm starting to see changes in the market that indicate it's going to get a lot more difficult to find the house that I'm looking for relating to competition. So one option that's bouncing around in my head right now is to offer my home for sale as is and take less for it so that I can jump into the market quicker to get a property for myself. It's an option I'm currently just kicking around. I've already got the ball rolling with some of the remodeling already. And I would obviously roll that into whatever price I put it out there for. But this is something I think you should always be doing, whether you are an investor or a rehab person or you're someone who's thinking about selling your home. Keep up to date on what's going on with the trends relating to your local marketplace. Always be aware of who the potential competition is in your price point, and also understand your limitations in terms of how well you can market your home. Now, I have 3 teenage boys living in my house that make it very difficult to keep it in show-ready status all the time. Now they're with me every other week, so they're with their mom every other week. So those other weeks, then they're not here. Potentially, we're all ready to go and everything looks good. But there are different challenges relating to that make me think it might be a good option for me to go out there and maybe privately market this out a little bit to folks who might want to get a discount on the home. So we'll see. I'll let you know how that works out and what my thought process is. But for right now, I'm still sticking with my original plan of doing the remodel, getting it onto the market in time to get the best price and the best return on investment. And hopefully you can follow me along on the ride and maybe learn a little something that can help you in your own personal business, or maybe just find something interesting to think about for a while. All right, folks, thanks again for listening. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to spend with me, and I do hope that you get value out of each and every show. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'll talk to y'all next time.